This is Tech Talk. This is Tech Talk, no hearing, no problem. This is a session hosted by Melinda Davis, Lauren Satterfield, and TK Roseberry. Melinda has worked with Arkansas Rehab Services as an OT for 5 years and has been an OT for over 25 years. She obtained her certification as an assistive technology professional from the Rehabilitation Engineering and Assistive Technology Society of North America. Her years of working as an OT in various settings have provided her with clinical experience to assist with identifying and addressing the needs of our clients as they work towards their vocational goals. Lauren has worked for the past 7 years in the field of occupational therapy, and she has worked with ARS for the past 4 years. And TK has been an occupational therapist for 15 years and been with ARS almost 2 years. So we are going to turn this over to them and let them get started. Maybe. Can y'all bring up your screen?
Yep, I've got it.
Okay, you got it?
Can y'all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Let me get everything, move it out of the way here. Okay. All right, Carrie, thanks for introducing us. Like she said, I'm Lauren, and I'm going to start us off here and just have to say thanks for coming to our Tech Talk. Today, we're going to be talking to you about hearing loss and kind of how we encounter hearing loss in our setting and how it relates to your client's vocational success. We hope to give you some more information about hearing loss, but also introduce you to information about hearing aids and the different kinds of hearing aid systems, as well as other technology to help your clients out who are struggling with their hearing on the job or in a training program. And typically what we do when we receive that referral to review the hearing aids, we make sure we call them up and say, you know, have you worn them before? You know, are you experiencing any other issues? Because we may identify other technology that needs to be in place based on their job tasks or their job requirements. So we kind of, we've seen an uptick lately in hearing aid referrals. And so we're really trying to, we're always constantly looking into the latest research and educating ourselves on hearing aids and the hearing loss. Why am I filling here? There we go. Okay, so I'm going to start us off and I'll talk a little bit about hearing loss, just give you a brief overview and how it impacts function. Then Melinda's going to go into hearing aids and talk to you a little bit about that. And TK is going to dive into other hearing technology solutions, ALDs, anything that is going to help your client hear better on the job or in their home. And then at the end, we'll do some case studies. So I wanted to point out that just kind of a little tidbit, approximately 15% of American adults, which is around 37.5 million people over the age of 18 report some trouble hearing. And I have a feeling that that is a very low number. I think there are probably a lot more people that struggle with hearing on a daily basis. And also that in the US, hearing loss is the third most common chronic physical condition after high blood pressure and arthritis. So we are dealing with a lot of these cases lately. Okay, so the three types of hearing loss we typically see, that top one, sensory or neural hearing loss, involves the inner ear. Damage to the inner ear could be age related, which is the presbycusis you see there. That is age related hearing loss due to structural changes. Noise exposure is also common, damage to those inner ear hair or nerve cells. And then, of course, I'm sure some of you have heard of Meniere's disease, which typically affects, it's unilateral and typically, and it also causes vertigo, tinnitus, and we're seeing a lot of those clients come in with not only the hearing loss aspect, but issues with the tinnitus and the dizziness, and what we can do to support those clients throughout their day. We're having to incorporate more technology to do that. Conductive hearing loss, that's how the sound is not reaching the middle ear. Maybe that's due to earwax impaction, chronic ear infections with fluid in the middle neural or an eardrum perforation. And then there's also mixed, which can be typically like a sensory neural condition with the conductive component added in there. So just to kind of give you an overview, and like I said, we typically see that the sensory neural, that's really what we're seeing a lot of. You know, the baby boomers are working longer, and as I mentioned, with age, sometimes the inner structures of our ear changes, and that causes hearing loss. So really probably expecting a lot more of these types of issues as they continue working. So the audiogram, when we get the referral, you know, they've already been through an updated hearing exam with an audiologist or a board certified hearing instrument specialist. And from that clinical test, they produce this audiogram, which is a graph of what you're hearing and at what you're hearing based on the decibel system, and then the frequency you're hearing it at. So, you know, it can also tell an audiologist, you know, if further diagnostic testing is needed. So kind of going back to that, that audiogram gives us that magic number PTA that we all know so well, that 41 decibels. Frequency is just the pitch, and it's measured in hertz, and it's high and low. High is going to be kind of to relate it to speech. High is going to be that S sound, like in sun, and low is going to be the oo sound, that double O sound. That's an oo, low tone, a low pitch. Normal conversation is typically around 2000 hertz, just kind of throw that out there. And then your threshold of hearing is based on that intensity, the loudness, and that's measured in decibels. And so that PTA is calculated, it's an average of those two, usually at the 500, 1000, 2000, 4000 hertz. And that kind of gives you an idea of the hearing pattern and how severe the hearing loss is. And then of course, your speech recognition, that typically is compatible with the PTA. It should be around the same number. And that's just obviously going to be your minimum level for at which a person can hear speech and understand speech at 50%. So that's a little bit about that. And here's a chart to kind of show you, like I said, that 41 that our policy states has to be in place in order to qualify for the hearing aid assistance. You can see that falls in the moderate category. However, mild hearing loss can also be still difficult for people. And if they don't qualify, then it's our job to kind of say, okay, what now? What can we do to help this client? Because, you know, they're still struggling. I would say most of us probably fall in that mild hearing loss range and just don't know it. And really that moderate level, what they describe that as is almost no speech is heard at a normal level. Okay, so that's your one-to-one conversations, your phone calls. I mean, these people are struggling on the job to do those types of tasks. And so we try to, that's why we want to talk to these clients to make sure we have covered everything and to make sure they're getting what they need in place. So hearing loss in the workplace, about 12% of the US working population has a hearing difficulty. And things that we commonly see or hear from clients, issues on the phone, client supervisor meetings, virtual meetings has become huge. A specific job task that requires like hearing, like a nurse using a stethoscope. And then there's also things to think about like safety or environmental factors. Somebody working in a warehouse, you've got to be able to identify your surroundings and in order to be safe on the job. And then office chat, which, it's related to our vocation. It's what we do every day. And it's important as well because there are other implications of hearing loss. I mentioned the tinnitus, which is the ringing in the ears. That could even cause sleep disruption. Well, sleep disruption is then going to cause you to be tired the next day at work. And so there are things put in place, such as a white noise machine to kind of help some of that. And then kind of going back to the office chat, there are a lot of times anxiety is very much related to hearing loss. Anxiety and depression, someone's questioning and worrying, hey, what if I misunderstood the directions? Or what if, am I being discriminated against because of my hearing loss? What if I miss important information in a meeting? So it does create a lot of that anxiety and social anxiety. On the flip side, I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about this. Occupational hearing loss. So this is more about prevention. About 24% of the hearing difficulty among US workers is caused by occupational exposures. And occupational hearing loss can occur when workers are exposed to loud noise or ototoxic chemicals, which are drugs or exposure to chemicals that actually cause hearing loss. And noise is considered hazardous when it's 85 decibels or higher over a sustained period. And typically that's looked at 8 hours. But I know that like, even if I'm in my car for 2 minutes with 3 screaming children, like that to me is enough. Like that I feel like that affects me. So, 85 decibels is up there, and I'm going to this next chart is going to show you just how loud that is. And if you think about listening to that over and over constantly throughout your day or for a sustained period, that's a lot to take in. So who's at risk? Construction workers, warehouse workers, farmers working tractors or large machinery, firefighters, anyone that's constantly wearing a headphone, dispatchers on the phone constantly. So I think that's important to consider, even maybe somebody that doesn't have hearing loss or that has mild hearing loss. We want to help try to prevent that as best we can. So do they need hearing protection? Think about their job requirements and their job environment. So just how loud is it? NIOSH has a sound level meter app. I believe it's free and it measures the decibels. And so you can look at the different ones. Whisper is 30, normal conversation is 60. And then city traffic. Think about all those workers out there on the road constantly listening to city traffic over and over. That 85 decibels for an 8-hour day, I mean, that is creating hearing loss. Hand drills, you can see 98, power mower, 107, chainsaw, 110. So kind of just as a side note, you might consider an AT work referral for hearing protection or for reasonable accommodations to be put in place to help those workers. Okay, so now I'm going to hand it over to Melinda, and she is going to talk a little bit about hearing aids.
Okay, so I am going to preface before I kind of go into this is I am not an expert on any of this, but it's stuff that we see in some of our referrals. So kind of just wanted to go over the good, the bad, and the ugly of what we've experienced with that to kind of share with that. So some of the technology that can assist, of course, is hearing aids, which is what we see the most, I think, within our agency. I'm going to kind of go in a little bit to what a cross and a bicross system would look like and how that operates, because we do get referrals on that when we're looking at that unilateral hearing. Cochlear implants, those bone anchor hearing aids, Baha, which we don't see as often, but they are still very functional for folks out there, and just maybe some other technology options that are out there. These are all things that can be utilized to improve hearing. So go ahead and we'll look at hearing aids. So, there's basically two kinds. It's either in the ear or behind the ear. So you're going to see either ITE, or you're going to see like an ITC, which is in the canal, or a CIC, which is completely in the canal. So that's that upper one that you're looking at. And the bottom one is the behind the ear hearing aids, was what we get the most referrals for or see the most. I think they've become the most common. I think because it does not block so much of that hearing as like the canal does, because some, the hearing aid will pick up a lot of the sounds, but when you have that behind the ear and then that piece that's in the ear, it still allows some other noises to be able to come in just a little bit differently. I think they're easier to wear. I think they're not as visible. I think they're more a pleasure to wear and be seen or not seen. Maybe that's where I'm going with this. It's more of an aesthetic value there. So those are what we see the most out there. Some of the benefits of the hearing aids are, what the hearing aids will do. They're so multifunctional now. Most of them have went to a digital product. They used to be all analog, and but now going digital, we have those Bluetooth features. They're able to do noise reduction, and so when you're thinking about, here's the thing of a hearing aid takes in noise and amplifies it. So when you think about that, think of it's going to amplify all noise. It's not just going to amplify what you're wanting to hear. It's going to amplify everything that you're around. So hearing aids have come a long way where they can start masking some of that extra extraneous noise that you're not wanting to hear. Let's say maybe that you have hearing aids now and it's great to hear, but man, I hear my refrigerator running all the time and it is so loud. So they can go in and do some reductions and those kinds of noises for them to not be picked up, because now that you can hear so much better, you can hear everything so much better. So it you want to dampen some of those noises that are almost distracting in a way. But those hearing aids can be programmed to do that. A directional microphone, they are now where you can, like, let's say you're in a meeting and you're wanting, or you're at a restaurant, that's a better example, and you're wanting to hear the person that's right in front of you more than you want to hear the neighbors behind you. And those hearing aids can be programmed in a manner to reduce that noise behind you, but give you more of a directional microphone where that's picking up that person sitting either next to you or across from you. Different modes. Looks at, maybe like a quiet setting, which most of them are programmed in that quiet setting, but maybe you work in a loud setting. Let's talk about like the warehouses and things like that Lauren mentioned earlier. It picks up so much sound and we're amplifying those loud noises. And I'm going to give an example later on of how I actually talked to an audiologist because I had a concern for one of the clients that I was working with. And I'm like, we're just going to amplify that even more, but they can go in and reduce those high frequency noises so that they're not, going to be damaging or make it where they can't hear what they're needing to hear. So they can go in and do reductions with that. Of course, they can also, as I just said, lower some of those frequencies for them. And you get into the wireless communication like Bluetooth, which I think is great because now you can pair that to a cell phone. And, my father-in-law is extremely hard of hearing, and he had not been able to pair his hearing aids to his phone. So when you talk to him on the phone, he was making stuff up. He wasn't hearing anything that we were saying to him. And he got new hearing aids recently, and they went ahead and set them up and paired it to his phone. And the first time we saw him after getting those, it was like he was a new person. I can hear now. I can hear you guys. Call me on the phone. I want you to go outside and I want you to call me, and I'm going to be able to hear you so much better. So it is really much, it's a difference maker, especially in telecommunication. Of course, telecoil, which is one of the things that per policy, the hearing aids that we help provide need to have. Sometimes we get pushback with this. We're told it's old technology. Well, it's old technology that still works really well. The telecoil will help in those situations where maybe you're in church, or you're in a conference, or you're in a theater, or you're somewhere where there is a loop system in place, and it will be able to pair up, and it streams into that hearing aid where you can hear that information or that speaker so much better. So it really is a game changer. Home phones, the telecoil will connect with those because it's a magnet type situation. I will say, unfortunately, so many people are moving away from those home phone situations that the good thing is, if you're using a cell phone, most of them will Bluetooth to it. The problem is we have work phones that telecoils do not work well with those. And we'll kind of touch on that in a minute. And of course, then we have induction loops, which is part of the telecoil system. So the unilateral hearing loss, Lauren mentioned it earlier, some of the most common causes of that. Then what that means is that you could have no hearing, almost totally deaf in one ear, and have normal hearing in the other, or you have really reduced hearing in one ear and maybe a little bit of a hearing loss in the other. Maybe you're looking at a hertz of, hey, my PTA is 82 in my right ear, but it's 26 in my left ear. You have that big discrepancy there. And you see it very commonly with Meniere's. Also, a lot of autoimmune diseases. Maybe you've had a stroke and that nerve over on one side has been affected. And I want to bring this up, COVID-19. I actually have a friend of mine that is an audiologist, and I've actually dealt with a client recently that had hearing loss due to COVID-19. But the audiologist shared with me the other day, she says, it is amazing how many people are coming in. And a lot of it is a unilateral hearing loss that they're experiencing because of COVID-19. So we're looking at those long-term effects that we may see from this pandemic with that. It can have a significant impact on vocation and day-to-day life. And I'll kind of talk about that a little bit in a minute. So for unilateral hearing loss, usually what you're going to see is a cross system that is being recommended, or a bicross. And I've kind of given a little bit of a illustration here with how a cross works. And so you have the unaided ear that has a hearing aid in it, but it's just a receiver, or it's an amplifier. It's taking the hearing from the unaided side that cannot hear, and it is sending it across to the hearing ear that is also wearing a hearing aid. So it ends up being able to receive the information. So you're not hearing anything over here normally, but you put that receiver here, it brings in information from that side and takes it to the side that can actually hear. If a bicross system is the same thing, except on the side that's receiving the information, there's also a little amplification in that ear, plus it's receiving the information from that unaided side. All right. So kind of how that works, the reason that you need to do that, so some people may say, well, just put one hearing aid in and move on. Well, the problem is our brain doesn't process sound that way. It has to have sound from both sides to be able to look to localize sound or to make out background noises. Just think if you were working as a bus driver and you were on the road and you had that really decreased or no hearing on that one side, and you're not hearing extraneous noises or traffic noises that's on to the left, but you're only kind of really picking it up on the right, or you're hearing these sounds and like, I can't find it. I don't know where that siren is because I can't localize that sound. That could be a safety concern for that guy, for the bus driver, for the people that he is transporting. So that's really a big thing. We really look at it from a safety issue, from a vocation. You know, it provides the same benefits of a hearing aid, the things I kind of talked about. They can program them very similarly. We're still going to have a telecoil that we'll ask to be in place, but we're going to look at what happens is we have one side that meets the criteria for funding from ARS, and the other side, because it's the side that has better hearing, we're saying, oh, it doesn't qualify. But what we find is you have to have both to be able to help that person hear on that left side. So we get those and we look at, you know, can an exception be made? Is this vocation that the job that they're working in, is there safety hazards here because they can't hear and localize sound on that side that they don't have hearing? And I think it's very important that we look at that, and we usually call up, we look at the job demands that individual has, the essential jobs functions, you know, how they're working in customer service. You know, if it's a police officer, a teacher, even you know, even a daycare worker, and they can't localize sound like they should. Maybe they work on a bus and they're transporting, as I said, they're not even driving, but they're helping, you know, maintain safety of the children on there, and they can't localize that sound because they don't have hearing on that one side. That becomes a hazard or a difficulty completing all essential job functions at that point. So we kind of look at it to make sure, you know, I think they need both hearing aids. Well, they have to have them for the cross and bycross, but they need that for the essential job functions. So we really try to take that information in to make the best judgment. So of course there's cochlear implants, and I am no expert there. I kind of know how they work for sure, but you're only going to use those on those severe or profound hearing loss. Hearing aid will not work with these individuals. Of course, there's a surgical implant, and usually medical insurance will help with this. But you have, as in that picture shows, that external component that acts as the microphone, and it has the processor that's what's magnetized to the head, and it picks up the speech and it transmits it into that internal component for them to be able to hear. The people that wear these are the people that you would almost consider, and I know I'm not being official, but almost considered deaf, but this will work for them. And so it's very impactful vocationally for them. There's also the bone anchor hearing aids, the Bajas, and these are for conductive hearing loss. And Lauren mentioned that a while ago. It's the outer and the middle ear are damaged in a way that they can't take that sound in, but their inner ear is working okay. And so they have the piece that's implanted, and the processor, the microphone or processor is put over that. And so it works off of vibrations at that point that it's transmitted through for them to be able to hear. And it works really well for these folks. So saying all that, that's our general technology that we normally see, but we're usually looking for a total communication solution. And as good as those products are, sometimes they may not be the only solution that this individual needs. Not saying they don't need those products. They don't need hearings. They do need those, but maybe it's not meeting all of their needs. And so let's say somebody does get hearing aids, and anybody that we talk to, that we get a referral on, the client's gonna get a little talk from us, because it's not a one-stop shop. You don't get those hearing aids and, okay, I'm ready to go, because they're usually gonna need adjustments. And I want you to know that we encourage them to go back. If they're not working, if they don't feel right, they're probably not right. And so go back to the audiologist to get those adjustments, to get some assistance. Maybe it's not meeting all their needs, and there's other things that maybe sometimes we can look at. So if somebody has a hearing aid, maybe there's other things that they're also needing, which I'm going to kind of hit on this next slide, is that background noise that we talked about. As I said, it makes everything louder. Sounds from a distance, they're hard to make out. They can get things closer to them, but maybe those things in the distance are still a problem. Meetings, this is what we find, that they have a hearing aid, but when they get into a meeting, they're hearing everything. It's a roar. That's what they tell us. It's a roar. And so they're having a problem making out what the speaker is saying. Speaker phones, very difficult for people with a hearing aid. That makes it very difficult. Virtual meetings and trainings. I've had an individual that she really struggled with that. And work phone use, that's our most common one that we hear about. And in conferences, it's back to, I can't make out the speaker well enough. It's too far away. That's when those telecalls hopefully will come into play. So some of the technology that may help in these situations that are beyond that hearing aid, but can help be an add-on as a secondary technology, is the next slide, is we might be looking at an ALD, an assistive listening device, which can work off the telecall, or it can just be in place of a hearing aid to be used, where it has a microphone that can be placed by the speaker, and then it transmits directly to the either through the loop system to the hearing aids, through a telecall, or maybe just with a headset. Of course, a loop system is always a good option, even though, as I said, we get pushback sometimes from audiologists on those telecalls. Loop systems work extremely well with that telecall, but we got to make sure that they're turned on. It's happened many a time that box is checked on that hearing aid order form that it has a telecall, but we find out the telecall has not been turned on at provision of the hearing aid by the audiologist. Nothing against the audiologist. It's just that maybe they've forgotten, or they're just not sold that it's going to be as helpful to them as we believe it will be. So sometimes we have to call and ask, can we make sure that it's been turned on and things like that? It's a big deal. Maybe we would use a remote mic, and a lot of the hearing aids have proprietary products that has a remote mic that can be used in meetings. It can be set on like a table maybe and turned towards the speaker. It can have a microphone that can be worn. It can be worn by the speaker, and then it transmits Bluetooth to that individual's hearing aids. It works really well. And I talked a while ago, I don't have it listed on here, about virtual meetings. I had an individual, as I said, that really struggled with that. And what we found proprietary wise is there is a dongle, which is it's a little Bluetooth. If you have a wireless keyboard or wireless mouse, it probably has a little dongle that you plug into that USB port on your computer. And there was a dongle proprietary to her hearing aids that we could plug in. She could plug into the hearing aid, plug into the computer. And when they had virtual meetings, it allowed it to stream directly to her hearing aids, so she could hear those virtual meetings or trainings so much better at that point. There's, of course, Bluetooth, which is what I'm talking about, how they can stream, which is great for these hearing aids, and work phone technology, which there's several things that we have learned to use. Plantronics has some great things that can be an amplifier. We use some, it's called an MDA 200. I think there's actually MDA 220 out now that we connect to those work phones. But that's like putting a piece of puzzle together. There's times that all three of us are trying to figure it out because there's so many little pieces to make it work. Does it go with that particular phone? We have to have phone and model number and things like that, because the hearing aids, the telecalls on those do not work, especially through these new VoIP systems that we're seeing so much of. So hearing aids are great, still can't hear on the phone very well. So just know at that point in time, maybe a referral could be made to us, or have us look at it to see, is there more technology needed to help them be more successful in the job? And TK is going to kind of go into that.
All right, so I'm going to talk to you guys and give you some concrete examples with some photos, so that I know sometimes when we send out our reports and you get this stuff and you're reading over it, it's kind of always helpful to kind of have a picture in your mind of what that looks like with the client. So this particular piece of equipment is called the Minnow Assisted Listening Device. And we often use this. This can be used with or without hearing aids. This sometimes is a great solution for clients that don't meet the criteria for hearing aid provision, but they're still struggling to hear at work. What it does is it just amplifies the sound. And this particular assistive listening device, it has a multi-directional mic, so you can point it directly at the speaker if you're in a work meeting or something. Or if you're, say you're in like a group context, you could sit it in the middle of the table, and it's gonna, you get to pick the direction of the microphone to be able to hear and localize that sound a lot better. So this is a alarm and bed shaker. And I kind of debated on whether or not to include this in our presentation, but this is definitely something that I have recommended multiple times. So maybe you have a client that does wear hearing aids, or they do have a cochlear implant, and they have very severe, profound hearing loss. Most of those clients do not wear their hearing aids or that exterior processor piece of that cochlear implant. So what we find is they are not able to hear their alarm clock at night. And so that is a big barrier to getting up and getting ready for work in the morning. And so there are lots of different brands of these. This just happens to be the Bellman and Simpson. This is an alarm clock on the bottom. And then this has a really powerful vibrating bed shaker. This particular model, it pairs Bluetooth, but they also make them. We have a lot of clients that just kind of are uncomfortable with Bluetooth technology, or they find that it becomes unpaired really easily. They do make bed shakers that are hardwired. You know, you can plug them actually directly into a model, or you can Bluetooth pair them with your phone as well. And so this just is removing that barrier of the client not being able to get up in the morning and get ready for their day. Then Lauren kind of touched on these as well, but I wanted to show you some pictures. These are amplified stethoscopes. And sometimes we have clients that, even though they have hearing aids, or, you know, maybe they just have kind of what Lauren was describing, what's considered, you know, mild hearing loss, they're still struggling within the context of the nursing or medical field to hear those heart sounds. And that's very important to fulfilling their essential job functions. So these amplified stethoscopes can come in and really help that client make sure that they're being as successful as possible with or without the provision of hearing aids. These are really cool. Sorry, that's okay. These are really cool too, because they also have a feature where they will record this particular Littman model here, and then this other one here on the bottom. They will record the audio sounds. And so, you know, say they're in a busy work environment, in a busy room with a client and with a patient, and they want to go back and revisit that records the heart sounds, and then the medical professional can go back and listen to that later on, you know, for diagnostic purposes or whatever. But this technology is really transformative for clients. So these are a form. Again, there's lots of different brands of these. This is just the Sonic Alert version. So these can be important for clients that have profound hearing loss, again, from a safety perspective. And even some of our independent living clients, we have purchased these and set them up for the clients. As you can see here, the clients, there's another one of those that's a vibration alert, or there is a strobe, or you can increase the sound and the volume of these home alert systems. I installed one of these for a client that had very profound hearing loss, and to turn it up where he could hear it loud enough. He was in an apartment complex. I am sure that his neighbors definitely could hear that. That was very amplified and loud. So what this does is it can alert clients to a doorbell activation. You can pair the client's phone, their cell phone, or their landline phones. It also alerts them of when smoke or carbon monoxide is detected, or maybe say they have a child or a particular sound that they want to be alerted to. You can pair all of that with these home alert systems. And then additionally, if you didn't want to buy more than one unit of these, we can buy these they're like a little personal pager. And when it alerts sound, say they're moving throughout their work environment or their home environment, they can receive those alerts kind of through that pager system there. So these can be very helpful with clients at all levels of hearing loss. So I know Melinda and Lauren have both, what we find historically is that a lot of clients with or without hearing aids, they continue to really struggle on the telephone. And I will say, like Melinda said, I'm not an expert at this at all. And all of this has to really be handled on a case-by-case basis. It definitely depends on what kind of system they have. And I feel like on these, it takes a lot of energy and focus to try to figure out the right solution. And sometimes when you go and you visit the client and you think you have the solution, you get there and it doesn't work at all. So you kind of have to go back to the drawing board, do some research and try to figure out what will work best. But I will say that I feel like we work very hard at individualizing the technology that we recommend. And most of the time, I would say with good success rate, we've been able to find a solution for these clients. So these are just some pictures of some different solutions that we have recommended in the past. I had a daycare worker where they used just a traditional landline phone and she could not hear on that at all. She could hear well on her cell phone. And so what they were doing is they were forwarding the phone to her cell phone, but then there became some privacy issues. So we found just this cordless telephone here that, again, it has some DECT technology built into it. It also has that light there that when it rings, that lights up. And then it also, you can amplify the ringing sound, but then also you can amplify the sound that comes to this handset here. And that was the perfect solution for that client. These, this here at the bottom, this Serene, that's an inline amplifier. And then that Plantronics, which Plantronics has now become Poly, but it's still the same technology there. That's also a kind of a version of an inline amplifier. You can control the volume of the headset or the handpiece, as well as the volume that is coming out to the other person on the other end. I've utilized these multiple times. They work well with voice over IP phones. And we usually pair them with a headset as well, so that the client, in a call center or something like that. And then there have been instances where we have recommended this caption phone here. These are very helpful for your most hard of hearing clients. It records the caption, and then without them having to call the caption phone number, because that way they don't want a third person listening to their conversations. This CapTel phone broadcasts the captions there, and they're just able to read those as they come across. And so I kind of wanted to touch on this, and we could go really a deep dive here on this, but I'm just going to kind of, hopefully move through this rather quickly. And if you have questions, this is all very much on an individualized case-by-case basis. But what we have found is that for clients who continue to struggle to hear on their mobile phone, the technology has drastically increased. And some of these are particular and proprietary to Apple products. And so if a client does have an Android operating system, we will certainly do our due diligence and research how to pair that the best with those Android operating systems. But for Apple-based products, there is, I put the circle here with the person. On the accessibility features of Apple products, Apple has done a lot of work on making their products as accessible as possible to a variety of audiences. And so this accessibility features on your phone. That's where you'll find a lot of these. There's something called conversation boost. So say you are in a busy restaurant and you want to minimize the extraneous noise, or say you're in a boardroom setting, the conversation boost, it will boost the conversation that's occurring directly in front of the person. And you can pair it even to the person's hearing aids Or say they don't meet the criteria for hearing aids, the Apple, the AirPods, you can put those AirPods in and it will boost the sound directly from that person that's sitting in front of them directly to those AirPods. And I have recommended those before, which, you know, as a counselor, you get that that's kind of a really random technology recommendation for a client, but that was the perfect solution for that particular client. She didn't qualify for hearing aids, but she was struggling hearing her students in her classroom. And the conversation boost and the live listen, turning those on her cell phone paired with those AirPods, really helped her. The speak selection, you know, say somebody, what this is you can turn speak selection on your phone, and basically it becomes a screen reader and a text to speech. It's very easy. So, you know, say someone maybe has a visual impairment paired with a hearing impairment, that speak selection can really be helpful for them at being able to read the screen information on their Apple device. And then you can also turn on closed captions or live captioning on a phone. I know that Android does have a version of this as well. And those captions, they've really done a lot of work where they are really increasing the accuracy of that. So the next slide. So there, now we're going to kind of move into case studies and kind of what we see, you know, kind of give you an example. So I had a client that was a 47-year-old female client. She worked as a claims specialist for an insurance company. And what she was mostly struggling with, she does wear bilateral hearing aids. She didn't meet ARS qualifications for us to procure those for her, but she purchased them on her own. And she was still having trouble hearing on the phone, also in participating in virtual and in-person trainings. And then also during the pandemic, when she was working at home, the insurance company had given her an Apple iPhone. And so she was still having clients call on that iPhone and not into the call center because they had that number stored, and she was having a lot of trouble with that. So the solutions that we offered up for her was this Plantronics M22 inline amplifier paired with a headset. And because she had the hearing aids, I also recommended, these are called circumneural cushions. And what you do is you remove these traditional foam ear pads here, and you put those over, and then that way the headset fits completely over the ear and then also over the hearing aids. And so we paired it also with a quick disconnect cord because she was getting in and out of her desk a lot. And so those 4 things there were really able to help her solve her difficulty of hearing on her office phone. And then also we were able to help her with this. She was not been able to hear very well in in-person training. And so what we were able to do is this audio jack, we plugged that directly into the speakers on her computer and then paired that back with these ear cushions and this headset. And then that way she was able to hear and participate in those trainings. And then I paired, as Melinda kind of mentioned, with the hearing aids not being paired well to a client's phone, I was able to pair her hearing aids directly to her cell phone and kind of maximize some of those accessibility features there. And then we worked with her HR department on requesting accommodations to be able to use that live listen feature during meetings, and then also for her work phone to be forwarded to her office phone to increase her telecommunication skills. So all of those things were able to solve the issues despite her also having hearing aids. And then on the next slide, the next client was a teacher's aide at a developmental preschool. She also needed hearing aids, but she didn't meet the ARS criteria for those hearing aids. And so what we did was we recommended this assistive listening device. And then since she still needed to be able to hear the students and in the earbud wouldn't work for these, but we did these bone conduction headphones with her so that, as you can see, what this does is it works on the vibration of the bones in the inner ear. And that way it sends the sound that way. That worked really well for her in the classroom. And then also increased her ability to be able to hear on the bus, because she needed to be able to localize the sound of those children in the bus if their child was in distress, given the unique needs of the students that she was working with at that developmental preschool. And then she was at risk of losing her job because she was late a lot at work. And that was strictly because she wasn't hearing her alarm go off in the morning. So we provided her with this bed shaker and an increase in the decibels of that alarm clock. And that helped her so that way she was on time for work. And so that was an essential job function for her that we were able to improve with her.
All right, and my case study involves a referral I received more recently, a nursing student here in Little Rock. She was in her junior year, so she had gotten pretty far through her training program with severe, profound hearing loss. And this is a client who had struggled with hearing loss her entire life, but due to her circumstances, and she was unaware of hearing technology or resources that were available to assist her. And so, you know, I met with her and I took some equipment. I took the little Minnow personal amplifier there and just simply gave her earbuds to put in, and she couldn't believe what a difference it made. And then also that stethoscope, she plugged that up, and the look on her face, I mean, she got the biggest smile, and she just had no clue that any of this stuff existed. And so she was really hopeful that this was going to really change her path in school. And you know, it was causing her a lot of stress and worry about her future as a nurse. And so I will say that she did qualify because of her profound hearing loss. She did qualify for hearing aids, but there were some issues at the time on whether or not, some reimbursement issues on whether or not we were going to be able to pay for those. And she needed something pretty immediate because she was falling behind in class. So I did recommend that amplifier with the earbuds that she could use immediately. But then, like we said, that amplifier could also connect with that neck loop through a telecoil that would then pair to her hearing aids. If she were to get hearing aids in the future with a telecoil, it could then pair that way and stream directly to her hearing aids. So kind of like immediate, you know, she needed the immediate help, but then also this device would work with her hearing aids in the future. And then obviously the amplified stethoscope there. And she also needed testing accommodations. She wanted to test and do her like practicals in a separate room. And at first it was kind of like, well, why do you need to be in a separate, it was kind of a mess on getting these accommodations in place. But eventually it did work out, and we explained the need and why. And she did eventually get those accommodations to test in a quiet environment. So really, I really liked helping this girl out because she just was so appreciative and really just opened her up to what was available out there. So, and then I think Melinda's going to wrap us up here. Oh, you're muted.
Let me unmute. Sorry about that, guys. Just one of my more recent ones I had, it was, he was a forklift operator at Home Depot. So he had been recently diagnosed with hearing loss. He knew he was having a lot of problems hearing individuals, his supervisor giving directions as he's sitting on that forklift, and, you know, it was running a little bit. He also had some issues with customers coming up, and he didn't realize that they were coming up to be able to stop. So he didn't meet the criteria for hearing aids when he was really surprised that his hearing loss was it was really close. It was in the 30s, his PTA was, but he still didn't know what to do. Hey, you know, can I get hearing aids to help me? Because I'm still struggling even hearing, or is there something else? So I was able to go visit him on the job. And I actually had a decibel app downloaded to be able to record what the decibels were, which when he was on the forklift running around, he was running about 80 decibels, pretty much a lot. And of course it would be up and down. It wasn't a sustained at 8 hours, but I understood why he couldn't hear his supervisor and why he couldn't hear the customers coming up. And he was really concerned at that time. So I had brought here on the right is actually some headphones. And what these headphones do, they're called earmuffs. It's kind of like what you use when you go to, if you go to like a shooting range or a gun range. It has the little controller where you can reduce those really high decibels, but increase those lower ones so that you could be able to hear. Talk to his workplace about possibly using those, and they had a hard and fast rule: nothing covering the ears for their individuals on those forklifts, because they wanted them to be aware of the environment and people coming up, because it was safety. Didn't get past that, so I ended up requesting him be an exception for the hearing aids. But this was back when I called the audiologist, because I was concerned about, hey, he's in a situation where those decibels were running 80 decibels at times, you know. And she said, that's when, you know, we kind of really talked about it. She said, I can go in there. He never shared that with me, but I can go in there and make adjustments to that hearing aid where we can reduce those high decibel levels, and then he'll pick up those softer ones much better. So there's so many things that can be done to be able to help with just even hearing aids. It was back to safety, and it was going to continue to be a safety issue that he didn't know if he was going to be able to continue operating the forklift at that time. So I think all is well. I think we were able to assist him, and the exception was given. So it turned out well. So I thank you guys for joining us today. I hope the tech talk was helpful for you guys. We kind of gave you all a lot of examples of things that we encounter, and it may spark some thoughts with you guys, with some of the clients that you work with or maybe encounter in the future. And, you know, if you feel that you're just not sure if they need other technology, go ahead and send a referral, and at least we can investigate further to try to see if there is. So we're open to even phone calls, or emails, but, you know, if you just want to send a referral, go for it. And we do appreciate y'all's time.
Does anybody have any questions?
Oh, yeah.
There are a few messages in the chat. Kyle said correcting hearing loss to the extent possible is extremely crucial for individuals living with vision loss. Hearing loss can be much more limiting than the vision loss due to the lack of echolocation and directional hearing process. Lots of people appreciate the information. Excellent information. Tanisha is asking, do you all think the over-the-counter option for hearing aids is appropriate?
Well, we have discussed that. And I think right now we will not make that call. We really are a proponent of using a audiologist or a board certified hearing aid specialist to be able to do the testing to find out what is appropriate. The thing is who's going to program that to their specific needs? And I think that's the problem. How can you individualize that? And we just don't feel like we can make that decision. That needs to be made from a hearing professional.
All right, and we have a couple of questions. Do you assist individuals not working or senior citizens?
That would
like
be,
our IL cases.
yes. Yes, we do assist through IL, yes.
Gordon says, fantastic, thank you. This can really help my family and consumers I assist as they are developing hearing loss. All right, any other questions, guys? All right, Miranda, it's all you.